You have the idea, which ignites that sparks the fuse, and then the fuse takes you down a path because you're burning, you're learning, you're growing, you're understanding. Whoa, holy! I didn't know this. That now it changes. Now all of a sudden you talk to your customer. Oh, they don't want it. Oh, you pivot. Now you've got holy. You just discovered some other new, completely irrelevant, but wow. Every little micro failure led to this massive success. And that is the path.
Welcome, friends, to the Budo Brothers podcast. My name is David. Joining me, as always, are Eric and Kyle, founders of Budo Brothers. Let's get to it, guys. What do you say?
Let's go.
It sounds good.
All right. I have an idea, and I want to try it.
Let's do it.
And the idea that I have is talking about trying your ideas.
Ooh.
So let's take this topic into, we can take this into a couple different directions, but where I kind of want to start out is give me an idea that you had that you were unsure of whether it would work or not work or where it would end up. And tell me a little bit about that story of getting some bravery, getting some courage going and being like, all right, we're going to try this. Give me something like one of the first thing that comes to mind.
I got to take it back to our roots. We literally, when Kyle came up to me while we were training on the mats and said, yo, we should start a brand. That was an idea.
Yeah, it was.
That was an idea that I entertained. And through entertaining the idea, we then decided to try the idea. So we said, can we monetize our passion for martial arts by providing value to other martial artists on the internet? Can we do that? And that was literally the idea. So, okay, can we go and try that? And that's exactly what we did. We had an idea and we went and tried it. And
executed against the idea.
We just said, let's go throw it at a test shot. What comes back? And that's how Budo Brothers started. So
don't all things start at an idea?
Absolutely. You have an idea and then you try it.
So how come some people are successful, like the Steve Jobs and Walt Disney's, in bringing these ideas and trying them, and other people aren't?
Oh, fear of failure, man. It's fear of failure.
Go ahead, explain that more.
I really think that one of the things that holds a lot of people back is to be afraid to fail at something, to be afraid of what is somebody going to think if I do this and I do it poorly. Whether it is a hobby, whether it is something like I'm trying, oil painting for the first time or whatever, but being afraid of being judged by somebody else, being, that fear, you can almost turn it into fear of success in some ways. Like I'm afraid of what's going to happen if this works. As silly as that sounds, it's a real roadblock with people, where they're terrified of being judged, or they're terrified of somebody saying this is silly and ridiculous. Why are you wasting your time? What are you doing with your life? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Or they're afraid of like, what happens if this works? Then what do I do? And so I think that fear can be kind of at the core of not wanting to try something for a first time. Think about being in a dojo and how many people are straight up terrified to take a first step onto those mats.
True.
Because there's so much unknown, and there's a deep-seated fear there. And of course, when you take that person and you bring him out and you're like, look, everything's cool. These are squishy mats. Everything's all right. We're going to do a couple things and you're going to get comfortable, and I think that allows people the space to be like, okay, I can start to try this thing that I want to do. And so apply it to business, apply it to your life, apply it to anything, a hobby or anything that you want to do. I think fear is a major roadblock to somebody trying a new idea.
Now, speaking of fear and firsts, I know you recently completed a book. And
I did.
I believe It's something that you've been working on for a while. Can you tell us a little bit about the process, the idea, and how you're trying the idea with the writing of the book?
Right. So yeah, I just, I just recently wrote the words "the end" at the, as my first draft of a book. And that is 85,426 words.
Wow.
Which is a lot of words, man. That's a lot. That's a lot of words.
Big investment.
Good for you, man.
Wow.
Yeah, it's huge. And it's, it's the kind of thing where, in those, it's a passion project. It's not something, you don't get paid for the 85,000 words that you're in the middle of writing. Mm-hmm. It's, these are Saturdays where I'm waking up early and I'm taking 4 or 5 hours out of the day and trying to have as much creative output as I can, or editing at night, or even, because I synchronize everything on my computer and on my phone and on my tablet. So I may be in bed and not able to sleep, and I'll break open my phone and put down another 100 words if I can. Just little steps and little process. Now, for me, I'd never written a book before. Yeah. This is number one. I've written stories. I've written some articles and stuff like that. I mean, I'm a writer at heart. I've always been that way. And, so the way this started, I'll give you my idea. And this was a while ago. This was over a year ago, and it came from a writing prompt. And it was just something where, like, I was talking with a couple of other people that also wanted to be writers and, wanted to write things. And we threw out these prompts, and it's like, write a couple words about this, a couple paragraphs, and we'll share them when we get back together. And the prompt was, and I'll throw this question out to you guys and think about it as well. What is the oldest item in your possession? And that was the prompt.
Wow.
And so we were sitting there in a coffee shop, and I pulled this out of a deck of cards. I have a deck of writing prompt cards. And the question was, what is the oldest item in your possession? And we're like, yeah, sure, we'll write about that. And so we all left, and I sat on it for a couple days, and I thought about it. And then I had an idea.
Cool.
And my idea was, instead of the oldest item in my possession, what would the oldest item, like, in existence be? And what if it was a physical thing that was in this world? And what would it be like? And what would it have? And what traits would it have? And who would have it? And just all of these questions kind of opened up. And this was just this flood of ideas that I had.
Cool.
And so I wrote a few paragraphs about it as a story about a guy that has a knife, and the knife is the oldest thing in the known universe. And so, it's very supernatural kind of, science fiction, supernatural bent to it. But I just kind of went with that. And then we got back together a week later, and I read the small portion that I wrote, and they were like, whoa, like you went nuts with this.
Nice.
And I'm like, yeah, I guess I did. And, it was very unexpected. And at the time I was in the middle of writing a completely different book that I was about a third of the way in. And this was always nagging at me. Even I was working on that other work, and I put this oldest item thing aside. Mm-hmm. I had this pull to this idea. And at one point I was like, you know what? I've got to drop everything I'm working on, and I've got to write this story.
Cool.
It was too much for me to just let sit there and percolate,
Mm-hmm.
And so I started, and during that process, this was my idea for this book and this story. And I started developing a structure and outlining it and having a beginning and an end and trying to make it as cool as I could. And then started writing. And that was the idea that I tried. And then sure enough, a while later, I'm writing the words, the end. I've got a first draft. I've had a couple of people that have done a beta read for it. And they thought it was, they're like, man, this is really awesome.
Awesome.
And a lot of times a passion project is like that. If it means so much to you, it's going to resonate with other
Mm-hmm.
people. And those are important ideas. They're not the flippant ideas that you just ignore. If you really feel that pull toward them, those are the ones worth really going after.
So how long has this process been going on?
So I'd say the prompt was over a year ago. But I shelved it for months in complete denial that this is something that I should be focusing on, since I was doing another project. And I'd say that it was about 8 months of, since I made the decision, like, okay, I've got to I actually have to do this thing. I'd say 8 to 9 months to where I just left everything aside and diligently worked on it, and then tried to get into the best groove I could. And man, there were a lot of obstacles in the way and a lot of bumps in the way, but this was the idea that mattered. And so it was the one that I knew, even if I had a day where I sat down and the stars aligned and I had all the time in the world and my battery was charged, my tablet was at 100%, I had my keyboard, everything was hooked up, the headphones were on, and I sat down to write and nothing came out. And I had to put it away for a week or two, and maybe my output was 300 words in 2 weeks, which is really depressing. But there'd be another day where I'd sit down and the story's just pouring out of me and I'm writing 6,000 words in a day. Wow. And I know how I work creatively, and that's how I work creatively. I just never know what's going to happen. And so I allowed myself those failures of, if 200 words comes out, man, I'm just going to be grateful that I got 200 words out and I didn't go backwards.
That's really cool.
So you tried your idea.
Now,
I did.
Here's a question for the both of you. When you've had an idea and you've tried it, how often is your initial idea replicate the final product?
0.
Oh, no.
Yeah, it's the same for me.
It's no. A cookie crumb trail. You have the idea, which ignites that sparks the fuse, and then the fuse takes you down a path because you're burning, you're learning, you're growing, you're understanding. Whoa, holy! I didn't know this. Now it changes. Now all of a sudden you talk to your customer. Oh, they don't want it. Oh, you pivot. Now you've got you just discovered some other new, completely irrelevant, but wow. Every little micro failure led to this massive success, and that is the path.
And the crazy thing about that are so many people are scared or paralyzed to try their idea. But just from talking to the both of you, we all know that the initial idea is not what is the end result's going to be.
Right.
So you're sitting there and you're fearful of something that is 100% fictional. It's fake.
Yep. Absolutely.
It doesn't exist because once you begin the process, the odds of it being exactly as you envision it are slim to none.
So this is a really, this topic is obviously very near and dear to me. In the writing world, we have, and it applies to business. It applies to just really anything. There's 2 ways to think about how to write something. And you're either a plotter or a pantser. So a plotter, like one who plots out everything that is supposed to happen, start to finish, and executes that exact vision, or a pantser who just goes by the seat of your pants and just figures like, hey, this is my idea. Let's just jump into it and see where it goes.
Would you say we're different, you and I?
Yeah, I feel like...
Which one are you?
I'm the scatterbrain.
Yeah.
You're a pantser.
Yeah, pantser. I think I'm more of a plotter. Like I try to...
You bring structure to a lot of things.
Which is weird because we both live in chaos. but when we're planning, yours is...
Kyle's the better planner. Out of both of us, dude, you're the...
That's scary to say.
Which is frightening.
That's frightening.
That's the state. Like, I can't plan a free lunch, but who's always organizing our trips?
Right.
Who's always organizing the travel? I'm like, yo, Kyle.
Eric literally shows up to the airport with his summer gear and his winter gear because he doesn't know where we're going.
What's happening?
So is Kentucky warm right now?
Yeah. Exactly. It's like beaches there.
Do we need flip-flops?
Yeah.
Oh, jeez.
All right. So there's a mix. And with anything, I think it's good to have elements of both, in what you're doing. I think it's good to say like, okay, I have this vision and this is my plan, but I'm going to allow the fact that it may go sideways. And if it does, I want to be able to handle that gracefully and roll with it and come out with something awesome anyway.
Yeah.
And so there really is something to be said for that, to have that flexibility. So if you are going to try an idea, I think if we overplan, we can't execute it.
Analysis paralysis.
That's exactly the term. Analysis paralysis, right? Like I want this exact thing so bad. If anything is slightly deviating from this, I'm going to be a disaster.
Definitely.
Right. And that's no good because you're never going to make it there. Also, you can't just say like, well, I've got 10 grand to invest, but here I go. Right. Like without any plan whatsoever. That has a lot of pitfalls to it as well. You have to have some kind of an idea and some kind of a vision and something that's meaningful behind it.
It's such a balance because without structure, it falls apart, and without flexibility, it breaks. So there's that beautiful balance that you need to find. And the ultimate superpower is adaptability, the ability to adapt. You're able to adapt. That is meaning that when your conditions change, you can continue to thrive because you've adapted to the conditions. And that is a beautiful mechanism to thrive in your life.
Definitely.
So when you're scared, right, when you have a little bit of that fear, let's say you have an idea. Somebody out there is listening to this right now, and they have an idea that they want to try. What are some of the things, when you had your idea, what were some of the things that you looked to help kind of guide you and say, okay, like this is our idea. We want to get to this end point. We have kind of a basic plan. Where did you look for inspiration as to how to get from point A to point Q or whatever it was?
I think the way I litmus test a lot of my ideas is twofold. One, how the market or people respond to the idea. Like if you were to read them your book and you watch them and they're like, yeah, it's pretty good, man. But you know, when you're looking at them and it's not, and they're not talking about it, and they're not sharing it. Yeah. And the second litmus test is how it feels internally. Does it feel good? Did I do something right? Like even with some of the content that we put out, we've dropped videos like the videos about cereal and random things where we think it's hilarious, but we have no idea what other people are thinking about it. So I think those two things are kind of are ways that you can tell whether an idea is good or not. If you see that you are doing something and it's enhancing people's lives, making it better, improving it, maybe you're on the right path.
Exactly.
And if it's doing the same thing to your life, maybe you're on the right path. Maybe that idea has worked. Now, the reverse is also true. If you had an idea and you go with it, but it's bringing more negativity into your life and stress and turmoil, maybe it's time to try something new, adapt, or to pivot.
Yes.
So, okay, these I love this because these bring up it's so many different directions to kind of go in on all of these things. In terms of that trying it and like, you know, just finding that different path and way to go, what you hit on there to me sounds like your motivation for it, right? So is your motivation, you know, and as a writer, is my motivation to be the next Stephen King and sell a bazillion copies of something? Or what is my motivation for that idea? And I think when you hit on that, some motivations are able to stick and help you see it through when they matter. And some motivations are a little more surface level. And I think those are the ideas that have a hard time sticking and a hard time for you churning that engine. If somebody is out, for instance, simply to make money on something, those ideas to me can't really last. Because there has to be something bigger behind it that is really driving you as a human being to say, I have to accomplish this thing.
Yeah.
And what is that thing for you guys?
The driving force, or
yeah. What is, to boil it down for me? Like, what is that thing that takes you, when you have ideas and you have obviously various products and like all sorts of different things? What is that driving motivation across everything that allows you to say, okay, this is our idea. We're going to go with it and we're going to make it happen.
What's cool is that you actually don't get married to the idea, and how we validate our ideas is how we think other people are going to get value from the idea. Like, is this going to make somebody feel great while they wear it? Is this going to help somebody learn how to train? Is this going to help add value to a human being's life? And like, that's what we actually ask ourselves. And then if it doesn't, great, then it's not a good idea. But we still tried it. And then that's what's beautiful about how this whole thing works, is that when you come up with an idea that serves a large number of people, you've enhanced a large number of people's lives. By definition, that has to balance, and your life gets enhanced. Like, that's how it works. Mm-hmm. It's almost
absolutely
like the idea. Like, yes, it's great. It's not great because you think it's great. It's great because the market thinks it's great.
Absolutely.
It resonates. Absolutely.
Another thing too is, from a selfish point of view, I know one of my biggest driving forces is seeking out admiration or attention, right? Mm-hmm. Even as a kid, I always liked to put on performances or shows or dancing things because I liked the admiration. I liked the attention behind it. And it was a need that I always sought out.
Interesting.
Internally, that was something that I always sought out. And so when I have an idea, usually it's to fulfill that need. And how I'm able to fulfill that need of admiration is by creating things that people find valuable and admire.
Beautiful.
The Hoodgie was one of those products.
Yeah.
We created it and we got to watch people engage with the product.
And they're like, I love this.
And they admired it. They loved it. They looked at it and it made them
this reflects my passion.
In a selfish way, like, these guys are awesome for creating this. Like, there was admiration towards it. So selfishly, I'm seeking out admiration with my ideas. How can I create things and improve and receive more admiration?
Right.
But
we got to dig into that.
Yeah. Unselfish side of things, you get admiration by serving other people.
Right, exactly.
So by being selfish, you're being selfless.
Awesome. So in a way, it's kind of you have an idea, you run somewhere with this idea, but that entire time it is up to you in your own head to be the wind in your own sail, so to speak, until you start getting validation from another source. Right. And as soon as that validation hits, you're like, oh man, like that put a rubber stamp on what I was thinking this whole time. Right? Like it was the feedback that you really craved, the positive feedback, and that positive feedback spurs you on to do more and to really invest yourself in it, because there is a lot of self-doubt going on. You're not sure.
I think the key word too is feedback, because it's just feedback. The comments in a feed or the comments about a product aren't meant to hurt your feelings all of the time. Some people are just saying that because they don't like a feature about it, or they don't like something about your writing or your speech or something. So if you take that as feedback and work to improve your ideas, it's valuable. But if you take that as, oh, this person's just saying this to piss me off or be negative, it's it doesn't improve your ideas. So the negative feedback is just as important as the positive feedback. And it's generally why we do multiple generations of our product. So we have a Gen 1, Gen 2, and generally by Gen 3 so far, we've been able to work everything out.
It's great because the best part about how we create our products, it's all crowdsourced. We use a tool to extract feedback from our customers that have enjoyed our products, and we literally white belt mentality. Hey, we want to learn what you've experienced with our products. How can we make it better? And then we take the feedback from our customers and then we bake it into the next generation of the product. So we came up with the original idea for the hoodie, and that original idea started that initial spark, which resonated with some customers, and they started buying it. And then we were like, wow, this actually there's something here. There's something valuable here. And then we ended up going to a generation 2 after we knew that there's validation. The market loves the idea, so let's improve on the idea. So we asked for everyone's feedback. They gave us their feedback. We incorporated it. They came up with some brilliant ideas like hidden pockets and pockets for your shirt and pockets for your blades, a hidden cell phone pocket in the pouch, a beautiful liner, all kinds of crazy, awesome ideas that we could not have dreamt of. But since we've asked for the feedback of the market and our amazing community provided it, we incorporated those ideas into the next generation. And that's what we're continually doing. Every generation has taken feedback from people who have already purchased the prior generation, said, hey, I love it. This is how you can make it even better.
And I want to caution something as well. You can have too many ideas.
Yes, that's true.
Right now, we have a laundry list of ideas of products and things that we want to bring to the market. But it's also paralyzing. It's crippling because you want to bring out all of these things, but you only have so many resources and so much time to bring these things out. So you have to look at your ideas and prioritize them. What resources do I have versus which is going to be the most impactful? Similar to what you did with your book. You are writing 2 books and you cut one to focus on the more important one. And it gave you the result of completing the book.
Correct. Yep. And not without its own rounds of feedback for in the writing world, it's the same thing as testing a product. I take some of my writing and I give it to other people that I trust. And I say, hey, listen, I want you to read this and I need you to critique it. And I have to make sure that I have an open mind, that when something comes back and you're like, yeah, this didn't work for me, that I'm not upset about it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I aggregate that feedback in the best way possible. And if I send it to 5 people and 4 of them say this part, it bothers them, and 1 says, yeah, this part was okay, I realize that I have something that I need to course correct along the way. And so, and I think that's just part of having kind of an open mind with your idea and wanting the best for it, really, and to make it that vision that you really have. So in terms of taking a first step towards an idea, what advice would you give somebody that's listening and is like, man, I have this thing, it's been in my head for a year or 2 that I want to try. What can you do to basically get behind them and very gently shove them forward so they just do it?
I would say stop this podcast right now and go execute towards your idea.
Just make sure you're subscribed first. Like I'm just going to say that.
The thing stopping people from doing what it is they're thinking about or their ideas is fear. It's generally fear. My sister is a prime example. I speak to her all the time. We're very different kids in the sense of what we chose to do career-wise. I'm very entrepreneurial. She's more structure-based. And she's so smart and very good at what she does, but sometimes gets paralyzed in her thoughts of thinking about things too long before executing against them. And my advice to her is go out there and try, like put the rubber to the pavement, just go after it and figure it out as you go. Because the idea that you have currently of what it is and the roadblocks that you're facing right now is probably not going to be the truth once you start executing. And so stopping this podcast right now and going and doing that.
My advice would be fall in love with the problem, not your solution.
I like that.
Oh, that's excellent. Tell me, describe that for me. Like tell me more about that, because that's really interesting.
So often we have an idea, and that idea, the idea that we have is often the first point that we fall in love with it, because it's a solution. We fall in love with that idea, and we're falling in love with our solution. We're not falling in love with the problem. And the problem is what you should fall in love with, because the solution to the problem might be something you haven't even thought of. But until you actually really understand the problem more so than the people that actually have the problem, that is where creativity lies. That's where creative solutions come from. When you consider the impossible and all of a sudden you get light bulbs and all of a sudden that is the creative process. And that is incredibly beautiful. So can we get to that state where we can observe the unmanifested, that which does not exist? And can we get creative to come up with new solutions by falling in love with the problem?
Oh, it's idea nirvana is what that sounds like to me, right?
Well, that gave me an idea for a Budo Brothers challenge.
Uh-oh.
Yep, let's do it.
So this is the challenge. I just thought of this on the fly, but I think it will be ultra powerful for anybody who's having troubles starting an idea. Take out a sheet of paper, write down the top 3 to 10 ideas on your mind right now. Cross out all of them except for one.
Ooh.
Circle that idea as the top idea.
Yeah.
And now meditate and think about the first steps into starting that for 5 minutes.
And putting it into action.
And then put it into action.
I love it. That's awesome.
Good Budo Brothers challenge.
That's right. That's the shove that somebody needs right there.
And there's no better time, because guess what? There is no better time, because there is no future. There is no past. There's only right now. So you can only start now, which by definition makes it the best time to start whatever it is you've been dreaming of, because it can stay in your head, or you can be the conduit which brings this beautiful idea to reality.
Yeah, don't give me that whole I'll do it tomorrow. Tomorrow's always a day away, so there you go. All right, guys, any final thoughts on trying your ideas, or are we pretty much going to wrap up right there? What do you say?
Get out there.
I got to say that
just get out there and
this
do it.
podcast was an idea. It started off as an idea.
Truth.
And we always knew we wanted a podcast. We did not know how it was going to happen. And we kept working on it, and we finally found a good crew of people that we wanted to do it with. And David, thank you for being a part of the podcast. And thank you guys all for listening. So if you're out there exploring the internet things, make sure to Google and search up the Budo Brothers podcast on your favorite streaming devices and hit that subscribe button. Mm-hmm. And once you do that, comment, share, like, and get in contact with us. We love talking to you guys out there.
Awesome. Thank you guys for another awesome one. And I will catch you both on the next episode.
All right, we'll see you next week.
Yep. Take care.